Your phone is watching you. It knows more than you think. It tracks your every move, your every like, your every heartbeat. But what if I told you it could predict your death? That's right, folks. Buried deep within the lines of code and algorithms is a chilling truth. Your smartphone, that pocket-sized companion, might already have a good idea of when your time's up. Creepy, right? It sounds like something out of a dystopian sci-fi flick, but this is the reality we're sleepwalking into. We've become so accustomed to trading our privacy for convenience that we've unwittingly handed over the keys to our own mortality. So buckle up, because we're about to dive deep into the rabbit hole of big data, corporate greed, and the terrifying accuracy of predictive algorithms. You might want to put on a tinfoil hat for this one. It's about to get real. Let's be honest, we're all addicted to our phones. They're our lifelines, our entertainment centers, our digital umbilical cords to the world. We use them for everything. Ordering takeout, finding dates, tracking our steps, even monitoring our heart rates. With every swipe and tap, we're generating an unprecedented amount of data. Data about our location, our spending habits, our sleep patterns, even our moods. This data is a goldmine for tech companies who use it to target us with ads, personalize our feeds, and increasingly predict our behavior. But what happens when this data falls into the wrong hands? What happens when it's used not just to sell us things, but to categorize us, to assess our risk, to determine our worth? This isn't just about targeted advertising anymore, folks. This is about something far more insidious. This is about the creation of a system where our lives are quantified, analyzed, and ultimately predicted with chilling accuracy. Enter Dr. Mei Chen, a brilliant but unassuming data scientist working at a tech giant we'll call Globex. Dr. Chen had always been fascinated by the power of data, the way it could reveal hidden patterns and insights that were invisible to the naked eye. She had spent years honing her skills, becoming an expert in machine learning and predictive analytics. Her colleagues admired her dedication and her uncanny ability to make sense of even the most complex data sets. To protect the innocent, or the guilty in this case. Globex was a behemoth in the tech industry, known for its cutting-edge innovations and its vast troves of user data. The company prided itself on being at the forefront of technological advancements, always pushing the boundaries of what was possible. But with great power came great responsibility, and not everyone at Globex was as conscientious as Dr. Chen. Dr. Chen was tasked with analyzing anonymized user data to improve the accuracy of Globex's health tracking app. The app was designed to help users monitor their health metrics, providing personalized recommendations to improve their well-being. It was a noble goal, and Dr. Chen was excited to contribute to a project that had the potential to make a real difference in people's lives. But as Dr. Chen dug deeper, she stumbled upon a disturbing pattern. The data she was analyzing was supposed to be anonymized, but she began to notice correlations that suggested otherwise. It was as if the data was whispering secrets to her, revealing connections that were meant to stay hidden. The more she looked, the more she found, and soon she was uncovering patterns that went far beyond health metrics. By analyzing a combination of health data, browsing history, and social media activity, she discovered a correlation between certain digital markers and life expectancy. It was a chilling realization. The data was painting a picture of people's lives, their habits, their choices, and ultimately, their mortality. Dr. Chen felt a shiver run down her spine as she realized the implications of her findings. In other words, she could predict, with a startling degree of accuracy, how long someone had left to live based on their digital footprint. Imagine discovering that. Imagine having the power to see into the future, to know the date of your own death. It was a power that no one should have. And yet, here it was, hidden in the data. Dr. Chen was both fascinated and horrified by what she had uncovered. Imagine realizing that hidden within the sea of data points were clues to the ultimate mystery, the date of your own death. Dr. Chen was horrified. She felt a deep sense of responsibility, knowing that this information could be used for good or for ill. The ethical implications were staggering. What if this data fell into the wrong hands? What if it was used to manipulate people, to control their lives in ways they couldn't even imagine? This wasn't just about optimizing ad revenue anymore. This was about something much bigger, something that touched the very core of what it meant to be human. Dr. Chen knew she had to act, but she wasn't sure what to do. She felt a growing sense of urgency, a need to share her findings with someone who could help her navigate this ethical minefield. This was about playing God with people's lives. The thought made her sick to her stomach. She couldn't just sit back and do nothing. She had to find a way to ensure that this information was used responsibly, that it didn't become a tool for exploitation. But who could she trust? The stakes were incredibly high, and the wrong move could have devastating consequences. But when she brought her findings to her superiors, she was met with a very different kind of horror. The chilling realization that Globex knew exactly what it had. The executives listened to her presentation with a mix of interest and indifference. They didn't seem shocked or surprised by her findings. In fact, they seemed almost pleased. Dr. Chen felt a cold dread settle in her stomach as she realized that they had known all along, and they weren't about to let it go. The executives saw the potential for profit, the ways they could leverage this information to gain an edge over their competitors. They didn't care about the ethical implications, the moral dilemmas. All they saw were dollar signs. Dr. Chen felt a deep sense of betrayal. She had dedicated her life to using data for good, to making the world a better place. And now she was faced with the stark reality that not everyone shared her values. She knew she had to make a choice. Would she stay and fight, or would she walk away from everything she had worked for? The decision weighed heavily on her, but one thing was clear. The world of data was far more dangerous than she had ever imagined. Section 4. The Cover-Up. Globex, like any self-respecting tech giant worth its weight in ethically questionable algorithms, did what any sensible corporation would do. They tried to bury the truth. The company had built its empire on the promise of innovation and progress, but behind the sleek facade, there were secrets that could bring it all crashing down. Dr. Chen was silenced, her research buried deeper than a Jimmy Hoffa Christmas special. Her groundbreaking findings, which could have revolutionized the industry, were deemed too dangerous for public knowledge. The higher-ups at Globex knew that if her research saw the light of day, it would not only tarnish their reputation, but also expose the ethical breaches they had committed. They told her it was all a misunderstanding, a statistical anomaly, a figment of her overactive imagination. They tried to convince her that her data was flawed, that she had made a mistake. But Dr. Chen was no fool. She had double-checked her work, and she knew her findings were accurate. The more they tried to discredit her, the more she realized the lengths they would go to protect their interests. They promoted her, gave her a raise, a fancy new office with a view of the parking lot. It was a classic move to keep her content and distracted. They hoped that the perks and the new responsibilities would make her forget about her research. But the shiny new office and the extra zeros on her paycheck couldn't erase the truth she had uncovered. Anything to keep her quiet. They even hinted at more lucrative opportunities if she played along. The message was clear: stay silent and you'll be rewarded. Speak out and you'll face consequences. But Dr. Chen's integrity couldn't be bought. She knew that the truth was more important than any personal gain. But Dr. Chen wasn't buying it. She couldn't ignore the ethical implications of her findings. The data she had uncovered pointed to serious flaws in Globex's technology, flaws that could have devastating consequences if left unaddressed. She felt a moral obligation to ensure that the truth was known, no matter the cost. She knew what she'd seen. The patterns in the data were undeniable. The algorithms were not just malfunctioning, they were being manipulated. Someone within the company was deliberately altering the data to hide the truth. Dr. Chen realized that this was bigger than just a technical glitch. It was a deliberate cover-up. And she knew she couldn't stay silent. The weight of her discovery, the sheer magnitude of its implications, was too much to bear. She couldn't live with herself if she allowed this deception to continue. The potential harm to the public was too great. She had to act, even if it meant risking everything she had worked for. The weight of her discovery, the sheer magnitude of its implications, was too much to bear. She spent sleepless nights agonizing over what to do. The stress was overwhelming, but she knew that she couldn't turn a blind eye. The truth had to come out, and she was the only one who could make it happen. So she did what any reasonable person on the verge of a mental breakdown, facing down a multi-billion-dollar corporation would do. She became a whistleblower. She started gathering evidence, meticulously documenting everything she had discovered. She knew that she needed to be careful, that one wrong move could expose her and put her in danger. She started leaking information anonymously to journalists, activists, anyone who would listen. She knew that the more people who were aware of the truth, the harder it would be for Globex to cover it up. She reached out to trusted contacts, people she knew would take her claims seriously and investigate further, but the truth, like a rogue algorithm in a data center, had a way of spreading. Once the information was out there, it took on a life of its own. Journalists began digging, activists started organizing, and the public started asking questions. The cover-up that Globex had worked so hard to maintain was beginning to unravel, and there was no stopping it now. Section 5. Silencing the truth. Remember that whole freedom of the press thing? It was supposed to be the cornerstone of democracy, the bedrock upon which the free world stands. The idea that journalists could report the truth without fear of retribution, that the public had a right to know what was really going on behind closed doors. Yeah, it turns out it's not so free when you're messing with the big boys, the ones who have the power to shape narratives and control the flow of information. These corporate giants, with their vast resources and influence, can make or break stories with a single phone call. They can decide what gets published and what gets buried, all in the name of protecting their interests, especially those who can influence what you see or don't see on your precious news feed. Algorithms designed to keep you engaged, to feed you content that aligns with your beliefs, while quietly suppressing anything that might challenge the status quo. It's a subtle form of censorship, one that most people don't even realize is happening. Articles about Dr. Chen's findings were mysteriously disappearing from the internet, vanishing without a trace. It was as if someone had decided that the public didn't need to know about the potential dangers lurking in their devices. Instead of open debate and discussion, there was silence, a void where the truth should have been, replaced by clickbait listicles about the 10 best phone cases for spring. Convenient. Distract the masses with trivialities, keep them focused on the superficial while the real issues are swept under the rug. It's a classic tactic, one that's been used time and again to divert attention from what's truly important. Journalists who dared to investigate were threatened with lawsuits, their livelihoods put on the line, legal battles that could drag on for years, draining their resources and their resolve. It was a clear message: dig too deep and you'll pay the price. Their careers mysteriously hitting dead ends like a GPS losing signal in a tunnel. Promising opportunities suddenly evaporating, doors that were once open now firmly shut. It was as if an invisible hand was guiding their fate, ensuring that they would never get too close to the truth. It was a full-on digital witch hunt, a coordinated effort to discredit and destroy anyone who posed a threat to the established order. Accusations flying, reputations tarnished, lives upended. And all the while the real culprits remained hidden in the shadows, pulling the strings. And Dr. Chen was the unlucky witch in question, a brilliant mind, dedicated to uncovering the truth, now caught in a web of deceit and manipulation. His research, once hailed as groundbreaking, now dismissed as dangerous and unreliable. His character, once respected, now smeared with baseless accusations, but the more they tried to suppress it, the more they tried to erase his work and silence his voice, the more the truth seeped out. Like water slipping through their fingers, it spread through social media, shared in whispers and private messages, a digital leak that couldn't be contained. Like a digital oil spill spreading across the vast ocean of the internet. Each drop of information, each piece of evidence adding to the growing tide of awareness. People were starting to take notice, to question the official narrative. People started to whisper, to share, to question. Conversations that once took place in hushed tones now happening openly, as more and more individuals began to see through the facade. Could their phones really predict their deaths? The idea seemed far-fetched, almost absurd, but the evidence was there, staring them in the face. Data points and algorithms, all pointing to a chilling possibility. The answer, as it often is with these things, was far more complicated than anyone could have imagined. It wasn't just about the technology, but about the people behind it, their motives and their methods. It was a puzzle with many pieces, a mystery that required careful unraveling. And as the truth began to emerge, it became clear that this was just the beginning. The fight for transparency, for accountability, was far from over. The story of Dr. Chen and his findings was a wake-up call, a reminder that the truth, no matter how deeply buried, will always find a way to come to light.